Hello, Notre Dame football fans. This week's theme for our Notre Dame recruiting show is the Irish coaches hitting the road during their bye week, as well as Mike and I hitting the road. I'm joined by Mike Singer, Notre Dame football recruiting expert on blueandgold.com. Make sure you hit like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we're always saying, we have a ton of stuff like this, a lot of stuff for recruiting fans to enjoy. Mike, let's first go into the Notre Dame coaches. They don't take any time off during their bye week. They hit the road recruiting. You have a ton of information about which coaches went where in your weekly gold standard article on Blue and Gold, so everyone check that out. But I just want to ask you like a couple key players from each class. Let's start with 2022, and I know Notre Dame put some effort into going to see an Amorion Walker.
Yeah, definitely. Want to mention real quick when these coaches go on the road, this is the evaluation period. There's very minimal contact between the coach and the recruit, like the bump rule you hear about. So this is not an in-home visit. This is an evaluation, and they talk with high school coaches. So a couple of guys we wanted to talk about in the 2022 class. Notre Dame receivers coach Del Alexander was in the New Orleans area to see Amorion Walker, Notre Dame's 2022 receiver commitment, who has visited Alabama, LSU, and Michigan. And that's just the three schools that have been reported. There's even another out there that he's visited that kind of flew under the radar. We're not going to get into that. And of course, committed to Notre Dame and took an official visit there over the summer. So he's been rumored to be a Michigan flip. But in talking to sources on the Notre Dame side of things, that's really not what people in South Bend are feeling. There's cautious optimism that Walker will stick with Notre Dame, and that's the feeling I got in talking to sources following Alexander's visit to Walker's high school. Is that Walker is, saying that he's locked in with the Fighting Irish. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. Again, cautious optimism. Cautious optimism is the word I would use there. We'll just kind of see. But if Walker takes an additional visit to Notre Dame, an unofficial for a game this fall, I think you'd feel a lot better if you're a Notre Dame fan about that recruitment. And the other recruit in the 2022 class we want to talk about was, how about this, Greg? Notre Dame visiting a Penn State commit, Nicholas Singleton, a running back, and really Notre Dame's top running back on the board in that 2022 class, picks the Nittany Lions over the summer, not to the liking of the Notre Dame staff. So McNulty, who was previously a coach at Penn State and Rutgers, made stops in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. That's really his recruiting area. So made a stop in Nick Singleton's high school. If James Franklin does get the USC job or the LSU job, man, you better believe Notre Dame's going to go hard after some of those commits. Nick Singleton really being the number one guy to know at this point. Notre Dame's got a running back pledge from Jadarian Price. They would love to get a second if it's the right fit, and boy, would they love to have Nicholas Singleton. Nothing really super notable to come out of McNulty's visit to Singleton's high school. Again, they're not able to sit down and really talk with the prospects, but a bunch of other schools are still going hard after Singleton. Notre Dame working on him as well. With the rumors of Franklin potentially leaving Penn State for another job, Singleton's someone that everyone's going to go after.
Yeah, I saw James Franklin actually at Jason Moore's game, the 2023 defensive tackle from DeMatha High School outside of Washington, D.C. As for Notre Dame's head honcho, Brian Kelly, he decided to make his way up to Detroit.
Yeah, he and offensive coordinator Tommy Reese made a stop at Detroit Martin Luther King High School, home of Dante Moore, who I would argue is Notre Dame's top realistic quarterback target. We actually broke him down in a previous YouTube video last week. I heard the visit went well. Not a ton to add again because they're not able to sit down with the prospect and really break things down. But just from what I hear at people at that school, Kelly and Reese showing their face inside the school. This is a big deal. That's showing love to prospects, and that's something they certainly like. And then another guy that Notre Dame has made a really good impression on recently is AJ Harris, a borderline 5-star recruit in the 2023 class down on the Alabama-Georgia border, Phenix City, Alabama. Mike Mickens was at his school this past week. Watch him practice. I'm told chopped it up a ton with the coaching staff there. AJ Harris, a guy who visited Notre Dame over the summer. People think it's like Alabama, Georgia, or Clemson. I mean, look, he's a bona fide stud at the cornerback position from the South, so a lot of people think he's going to stay in the South. Well, his dad's a huge Notre Dame fan, tons of family in the Midwest. how about this? Young man's actually lived when he was younger in Germany, like the military family. So he is not, destined to stay in the South. Like that's not his hometown. I think Notre Dame, again, with his dad being a Fighting Irish fan, Midwest ties. I'm expecting him to visit in a few weeks. Watch out for Notre Dame and AJ Harris's recruitment.
Mike, you and I both hit the road this past weekend. You headed out to Vegas to go to Bishop Gorman High School, which is obviously has a proud tradition and produces plenty of prospects.
Yeah, I guess I have to share details about my time in Vegas. They say not to, but I guess I have to for work purposes. I'll leave the personal details out of it. But yeah, when we actually talked about me as a staff going out to Vegas a few months ago, there was a lot more Notre Dame recruits at Bishop Gorman. You had Cyrus Moss, a defensive end, who officially visited Notre Dame, top 100 player. Notre Dame's faded out of that recruitment. Jake Taylor, a 4-star offensive tackle, he's committed to Oklahoma. Yeah, the Zachariah Branch is a 2023 wide receiver, a big-time prospect. I believe someone who should be in consideration as a 5-star prospect. 3 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown in that game. Notre Dame's on the outside looking in that recruitment. But the one big prospect that made this trip worth it, besides, doing, going to the Taco Bell Cantina, which was amazing, was Justyn Rhett, top 50 cornerback target in the 2023 class, visited Notre Dame in June for Irish Invasion, got his offer from the Irish then. I've got a future cast pick in for him to land at Notre Dame. Tons of information about him in the Gold Standard, including an interview with his father, Troy Rhett, who played at Albany in the late 90s, so don't miss that. But as far as how he looked, I'm glad I got clips of him warming up, Greg, and a little bit on practice from the day before, because he didn't play a ton. It was a 49-0 blowout. He's even recovering from a shoulder injury, so he didn't even start the game. They brought him in, I believe, on the 3rd possession for the defense, so they're kind of easing him back in coming off that injury. But one thing that absolutely stands out is his combination of size and speed. He is about 190 pounds. I want to say about 6'6'1", and still moves very well at that size. I was talking to his dad. He was kind of telling me, like, look, I've had to tell Justyn, you need to slim down a little bit.
Yeah.
But the bigger he gets, he's not losing any of that speed and agility. So really impressive player. Notre Dame, again, I have a future cast pick in for him to land with the Fighting Irish, and would be a big one that Marcus Freeman, Mike Mickens, and that defensive staff wants bad.
One of the players I saw this weekend, Jason Moore, as mentioned earlier, big defensive tackle in the class of 2023, got hurt in the second quarter. An ankle injury. He's doing fine, was in good spirits after the game, but he's rated in the 30s overall nationally in the country for the class of 2023. I mean, he's definitely a 5-star candidate. As you mentioned with Justyn Rhett, he's a combination of size, speed, and agility that I think is pretty rare. You look at him and you think, oh, defensive tackle. I mean, he's that kind of size, but then he looks so comfortable playing defensive end, rushing the passer, bending and getting around the corner. He's a heck of a prospect. As I mentioned, James Franklin was there, the Penn State head coach, during the first half of that game. Also saw Aidan Gobira, who's been a long-time Notre Dame committed way back in February. Kind of the opposite side of the spectrum. He admits he needs to put some time in the weight room and gain some weight. He's pretty thin right now, but some of the other reasons why that make him a really good prospect were there. I mean, a motor, the ability to bring speed off the edge, just general disruption on any pass play. He was pretty impressive. He had 2 sacks, unfortunately, in a losing effort for his team on Friday night. And then I also caught up with Devin Houstan, who is a former Canadian high school football player, moved down to Maryland this past year, and is a recent offer for Notre Dame in the class of 2023. Another kid that on the hoof looks great. I mean, I think we have him listed at 6'5", 270, and he's either that or very darn close to that. That definitely checks out, and also just a bright, smart, fun kid to interview. So you could see that why he's a Notre Dame target and why he's going to be a priority for a lot of other schools. I mean, Notre Dame offers early last week, and then Penn State comes right in there and offers, I think, within 24 hours. So interesting prospect. His brother Caleb Houstan was a 5-star basketball player in 2021 and is now at Michigan. So, and he's 6'9", so you wonder if Devin is actually if he's done growing. You don't know because he's only 16 years old. So really intriguing prospect. Credit to Notre Dame for getting in there early. Prior to that, his only Power Five offers were from Wake Forest and then locally from Maryland. So Notre Dame being the third Power Five school to get in there for a kid that seems like a Notre Dame type is a good thing. So that's my report from the Baltimore, Washington area.
Greg, I mean, Mike Elston does such a good job. I mean, Gobira, the ceiling's enormous. Jason Moore, when you're talking about him looking good at defensive end, I just think of, man, him rotating between the 3 tech and the 5 tech, that big end position that Myron Tongavaloa most has been playing. And then, look, Devin Houstan, I don't even believe he's rated right now by
No.
rivals. Elston doesn't care. He is. I mean, he will offer anyone from coast to coast, 5 star, 0 star, does not care. Trust his own evaluations, and he'll have a 5 star like a Dalen Hayes or a 3 star Western Michigan commit like Ade Ogundeji. He does not care. He does a great job developing all these guys.
All right, everyone, make sure you check out the Gold Standard. That's Mike Singer's recap of all of Notre Dame's coaches' work on the road during the bye week. It's an excellent update. There's a ton of information there, so make sure you go to blueandgold.com to check that out. Also, hit like on this video, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We will be back on later this week to dive into a massive recruit visit weekend for the USC game in South Bend, Indiana. So stay tuned.